I never thought my own son would be the one to break me. If you've ever given everything to someone you love, only to have them toss you aside like yesterday's trash, then you already know the kind of rage that lives in your chest long after the shock wears off. That's where I'm speaking from right now. That cold, clarifying anger that comes when you realize love wasn't enough. When you realize you were just convenient. My name is Helen. I'm 63 years old, and for most of those years, I believed that being a good mother meant sacrifice. It meant working 2 jobs so my son Andrew could go to college without debt. It meant saying no to myself so I could say yes to him. It meant staying in a house that was too big and too empty after his father left us when Andrew was only 7, because I wanted him to have stability, roots, a place to come home to. And for a long time, that worked. Andrew grew up strong, smart, capable. He got his degree in business. He landed a decent job at a marketing firm in the city. He moved back home 2 years ago to save money, which I welcomed. Honestly, I did. The house felt less lonely with him in it. I liked hearing his footsteps upstairs in the morning. I liked cooking for 2 again. But then he met Stephanie. I should have seen it coming. The way he started staying out later. The way conversations at dinner got shorter, clipped, distracted. He was falling in love, and I told myself that was normal. Healthy, even. Mothers are supposed to let go, right? We're supposed to step aside and let our children build their own lives. But Stephanie didn't just want Andrew. She wanted everything that came with him. Including me. Including my house. Including my money. It started small. Little comments Andrew would make, almost casual, about how Stephanie thought the living room could use new furniture. How she mentioned that the backyard would be perfect for hosting parties if we just updated the patio. How she joked, that the house was vintage in a way that really meant old and embarrassing. I bit my tongue. I smiled. I told myself she was young and didn't know any better. She was 28, 11 years younger than Andrew, and she had that kind of confidence that comes from never having struggled for anything. Her parents paid for her college. They bought her first car. She worked part-time at a boutique downtown and called it her passion project. If you're rolling your eyes right now, good. You should be. Because I was too blind to roll mine back then. The real trouble started about 4 months ago. Andrew came to me one evening while I was folding laundry in the den. He sat down on the arm of the couch, hands clasped, that serious look on his face that used to mean he wanted to talk about something important. Something he'd thought through. He told me that he and Stephanie wanted to buy a condo together. A place downtown, close to his work. Modern. Theirs. He said it like it was a dream we were supposed to share. I congratulated him. I asked how much they'd saved. I asked about the mortgage. That's when his expression shifted. He looked away, rubbed the back of his neck. He said they didn't have enough for a down payment yet. That Stephanie's credit wasn't great. Something about student loans she'd let slip into collections. That they needed a cosigner. And just like that, I understood. They didn't want my blessing. They wanted my signature. My credit. My financial guarantee that if they couldn't pay, I would. I told him no. Not harshly. Not cruelly. I just said, Andrew, I can't do that. I'm retired now. I live on a fixed income. If something goes wrong, I can't bail you out. You need to build this on your own. He didn't yell. Not that night. He just nodded, said he understood, and walked out of the room. But I could feel it. The disappointment. The resentment. It hung in the air like smoke. Stephanie didn't take it as well. The next time she came over, she barely looked at me. She sat at my kitchen table, scrolling through her phone while Andrew microwaved leftovers. When I tried to make conversation, she gave me one-word answers. Cold. Clipped. Like I was a stranger who'd overstayed her welcome in my own home. Andrew didn't say anything. He just ate his food and avoided my eyes. That's when I started to feel it. That sinking, gut-deep realization that I was losing him. Not to love. Not to adulthood. But to her. If you've been there, if you've ever watched someone you raised turn into someone you don't recognize, then you know that feeling. It's grief mixed with fury. It's heartbreak wrapped in disbelief. And it sits in your stomach like a stone. I thought maybe it would pass. I thought maybe they'd find another way. Maybe they'd save up, fix Stephanie's credit, prove me wrong. But 2 weeks later, Andrew came to me again. This time, Stephanie was with him. They sat across from me at the dining room table, the same table where I'd fed him breakfast before school for 18 years. The same table where we'd celebrated his high school graduation, his college acceptance, every milestone that mattered. Stephanie didn't waste time. She leaned forward, elbows on the table, and told me that they'd found the perfect place. That the seller was motivated. That if we didn't act fast, they'd lose it. She said, we. Like it was a team effort. Like I was part of their plan whether I wanted to be or not. I looked at Andrew. I waited for him to say something. To tell her that I'd already given my answer. To stand up for me, just once. He didn't. Instead, he cleared his throat and said, Mom, this is really important to us. It's our future. I just need you to trust me. Trust him. As if signing away my financial security was a matter of faith. I said no again. Firmly this time. I told them I loved Andrew, that I wanted him to be happy, but that this wasn't something I could do. That it wasn't fair to ask. Stephanie's face hardened. She sat back in her chair, crossed her arms, and let out a sharp laugh. She said, wow. Okay. So you'd rather see your son struggle than help him get ahead. That's really sad, Helen. My son didn't defend me. He just stared at the table. And that's when I knew. I knew that no matter what I said, no matter how much I'd sacrificed, I was the villain in their story now. But I still didn't see what was coming. Not yet. That moment was still 2 weeks away. The tension in the house after that dinner was unbearable. Andrew stopped talking to me unless he absolutely had to. He'd come home late, go straight to his room, and close the door. Stephanie stopped coming over altogether, which should have been a relief but somehow felt worse. Like I was the problem. Like I was the one who'd ruined everything. I started wondering if I'd made a mistake. Maybe I should have just signed the papers. Maybe I was being selfish. Old-fashioned. Maybe I didn't understand how things worked for young people today. If you've ever second-guessed yourself into oblivion, you know how exhausting that is. It eats at you. It makes you doubt everything you know to be true. But I held firm. I had to. And then came the night that shattered everything. It was a Friday. I remember because I'd made pot roast, Andrew's favorite, hoping it might soften things between us. Hoping we could talk. Really talk. He came home around 7. Stephanie was with him. I should have known then that something was off, but I just smiled and told them there was plenty of food. Andrew didn't smile back. He walked into the kitchen, and Stephanie followed, her expression unreadable. I plated the food. Roast, potatoes, carrots, all of it still steaming. I set it down in front of him at the table. I was trying. God, I was trying so hard. And that's when he said it. He looked at the plate. Looked at me. And said, we need to talk about the co-signing again. My stomach dropped. I said, Andrew, I already told you. He cut me off. He said, no, Mom. You told us what you wanted. Now I'm telling you what I need. We found another place. It's even better. But we need an answer tonight. The offer has to go in tomorrow. I felt my hands start to shake. I said, I can't do it, Andrew. I've explained why. Please don't ask me again. Stephanie scoffed. She actually scoffed. She said, this is ridiculous. You're sitting in this big house all by yourself, and you won't even help your own son get started. Do you know how selfish that is? I looked at her. Really looked at her. And I said, this is my home. I worked my entire life for it. I'm not risking it. Andrew's face went red. He stood up. And before I could even process what was happening, he slammed his fist down on the counter so hard that the salt shaker toppled over. He yelled, then what the hell are you good for? The words hung in the air. Heavy. Poisonous. I couldn't breathe. Stephanie stood up beside him. She crossed her arms and said, if you're not going to help us, Helen, then maybe you shouldn't be here. I stared at my son, waiting for him to tell her she was out of line. waiting for him to remember who I was, what I'd done for him. Instead, he looked me dead in the eye and said, "She's right. Either help us or leave." I don't know what I expected. Maybe tears. Maybe an apology. Maybe him to break down and say he didn't mean it. But he didn't. He just stood there, staring at me like I was the enemy. So I left. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I didn't even raise my voice. I just turned around, walked upstairs, and started packing. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely zip my suitcase. My heart was pounding in my ears. But I moved like I was on autopilot. Clothes. Toiletries. My medication. My laptop. I didn't take much. I didn't want much. I just wanted out. When I came back downstairs with my bag, they were still in the kitchen. Andrew was sitting at the table now, head in his hands. Stephanie was leaning against the counter, arms still crossed, looking almost satisfied. I walked past them without a word. I grabbed my purse, my keys, and I walked out the front door of the house I'd lived in for 34 years. I got in my car. I sat there in the driveway for a full minute, staring at the house. The house where I'd raised him. The house where I'd buried my grief after his father left. The house that was supposed to be my safe place. And then I drove away. I checked into a hotel that night. One of those extended stay places off the highway with bad lighting and thin walls. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall for hours. I didn't cry. Not yet. I was too angry. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you die for, then you know that anger. It's not hot. It's cold. It's sharp. It's the kind of anger that clears your head and makes you see everything for what it really is. Andrew didn't love me. Not the way I'd loved him. To him, I was a resource. A backup plan. A convenient place to live while he figured out his life. And Stephanie? She didn't even see me as a person. I was just an obstacle. Something in her way. Well, if they wanted me gone, I'd be gone. But I wasn't going to make it easy. I spent that first night in the hotel making a list. A plan. I wasn't acting out of spite. Not entirely. I was acting out of clarity. For the first time in years, I could see exactly what I needed to do. By morning, I'd made 3 phone calls. 1 to my lawyer. 1 to a moving company. And 1 to a locksmith. Andrew had told me to leave. So I did. But he never said I had to leave anything behind. I gave myself 3 weeks. 3 weeks to dismantle everything. 3 weeks to remove every trace of the life I'd built in that house. 3 weeks to make sure Andrew understood exactly what he'd thrown away. Some of you might think that's cruel. Some of you might think I should have just walked away and let it go. But here's the thing, I did walk away. He told me to. I was just taking what was mine with me. And everything in that house? It was mine. The deed was in my name. The mortgage had been paid off years ago with money I earned. Every piece of furniture, every appliance, every dish and picture frame and lamp, I'd bought it. I'd chosen it. I'd carried it into that house with my own 2 hands. Andrew had contributed exactly nothing. So when I hired the moving company, I didn't feel guilty. I felt justified. The first week, I focused on logistics. I met with my lawyer, Patricia, a sharp woman in her 50s who'd handled my will and estate planning. I explained the situation. Calmly, clearly, without emotion. I told her I wanted to ensure that the house remained solely in my name, that I wanted to explore my options for protecting my assets, and that I wanted everything documented. She didn't judge. She didn't ask if I was sure. She just nodded and said, "Let's make sure you're protected." I also started looking for a new place to live. Something smaller. Something that was just mine. I found a townhouse about 30 minutes away, closer to my sister, with good light and a little garden out back. I put down a deposit the same day I saw it. Then I called the moving company. I scheduled them for a Tuesday, 3 weeks out. I gave them explicit instructions. Remove everything except the washer, dryer, and refrigerator, which were built-in and technically part of the house's structure. Everything else, furniture, kitchenware, linens, decor, my personal belongings, all of it, was to be packed and moved to my new place. I didn't tell Andrew. Why would I? He'd made it very clear I wasn't welcome. He'd told me to leave. So I was leaving. Completely. During those 3 weeks, Andrew tried to contact me a few times. A couple of texts. One voicemail. Nothing apologetic. Just confused. Asking where I was. Asking if I was okay. As if he hadn't been the one to shove me out the door. I didn't respond. Stephanie, from what I gathered through a mutual friend, was thrilled I was gone. She'd apparently moved into my house within days, redecorating my living room, rearranging my kitchen. Making herself at home in a space that had never been hers. I let her enjoy it. For now. The day of the move, I met the movers at the house early in the morning. Andrew was at work. Stephanie, I assumed, was at her boutique. The house was empty. It took them 8 hours to clear it out. They started with the bedrooms. My bed, my dresser, the guest bed Andrew had been using, his childhood desk that I'd kept in storage and brought out when he moved back. All of it gone. Then the living room. The couch I'd saved up for. The coffee table I'd refinished myself. The bookshelves, the lamps, the TV stand. The rug I'd bought on sale 10 years ago and loved ever since. Then the dining room. The table where we'd eaten every holiday meal. The chairs. The china cabinet. Even the dishes inside. The kitchen was harder. Not because I felt guilty, but because it hurt. Every pot, every pan, every mug and glass and utensil, I'd used them to feed him. To nourish him. To show him love in the only way I knew how. But I packed them anyway. By the time the movers finished, the house was a shell. Bare walls. Empty rooms. Echoes where there used to be warmth. I stood in the living room and looked around. It didn't feel like mine anymore. It didn't feel like anything. And that's exactly what I wanted. Before I left, I did one last thing. I called my lawyer and had her meet me at the house. I wanted a witness. I wanted documentation. Patricia arrived an hour later, and we did a final walkthrough together. She took photos. She noted the condition of the property. She confirmed that I had removed only my personal belongings and that the house itself was intact and undamaged. Then we sat in the empty living room and waited. I'd texted Andrew that morning. Just one line, *, you should come home tonight. We need to talk. *. He didn't respond. But I knew he'd come. Around 6:30, I heard his car in the driveway. The sound of the door unlocking. Footsteps. And then, silence. I imagine he stood in the entryway for a long time, trying to process what he was seeing. Trying to understand how the house he'd been living in just that morning was now completely, utterly empty. I heard him call my name. Once. Twice. His voice rising, panicked. Then he walked into the living room. And there I was. Sitting on the floor, my back against the wall. Patricia beside me, calm and professional in her blazer and slacks, a leather portfolio in her lap. Andrew stopped dead. His face went white. He said, "What the hell did you do?" I didn't stand up. I just looked at him. And I said, "You told me to leave." So I did. He stared at me. Then at Patricia. Then back at me. He said, You can't just take everything. This is my home." I smiled. Not a kind smile. A cold one. I said, "No, Andrew. It's my home. It always was. You just forgot that." Patricia opened her portfolio and pulled out a stack of papers. She said, "Mr. Brennan, your mother is the sole owner of this property. She has the legal right to remove any and all personal property she wishes. The house remains intact and undamaged. You have no legal claim to any of the items that were removed." Andrew's mouth opened and closed. He looked like he wanted to scream. Or cry. Or both. He said, "Where's Stephanie?" I shrugged. I said, "I don't know, Andrew. I don't live here anymore. Remember?" And then I stood up. I walked past him. And I left. For the second time in 3 weeks, I walked out of that house. But this time, I took everything with me. The fallout was immediate. Andrew called me 17 times that night. I didn't answer. Stephanie left me a voicemail so full of screaming and profanity that I deleted it halfway through. My sister called, confused, because apparently Andrew had shown up at her door looking for me. I told her I was fine and that I'd explain later. I slept better that night than I had in months. The next morning, I woke up in my new townhouse, sunlight streaming through the windows, and made myself coffee in the kitchen that was entirely blissfully mine. No tension. No resentment. No ungrateful sun glaring at me over breakfast. Just peace. It took Andrew 3 days to show up. I was unpacking boxes in the living room when I heard the knock. I knew it was him before I even opened the door. There's a particular kind of desperation in the way someone knocks when they've run out of options. I opened the door. He looked awful. Unshaven. Dark circles under his eyes. His shirt wrinkled like he'd slept in it. He said, "Mom, please, can we talk?" I almost said no. I almost closed the door in his face the way he'd closed his heart to me. But I didn't. Because despite everything, he was still my son. I let him in. He sat on my new couch, a smaller, simpler one I'd bought for the townhouse, and put his head in his hands. For a long time, he didn't say anything. He just sat there, shoulders shaking. And then he started to cry. He said, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Mom. I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know why I said those things. I got so caught up in everything," and Stephanie kept saying. She kept saying you didn't care, that you were holding me back, and I believed her. I believed her over you. I sat down across from him. I didn't reach out. I didn't comfort him. I just waited. He said, she left. The second she realized the house was empty, she left. She said I was pathetic. That I couldn't even stand up to my own mother. She broke up with me over text, Mom. Over text. I didn't feel sorry for him. Not yet. I said, "What did you think was going to happen, Andrew?" He looked up at me, eyes red and swollen. He said, "I don't know. I thought you'd just come back. I thought you'd forgive me. I thought you'd fix it. Like you always do." And there it was. The truth. He didn't see me as a person. He saw me as a safety net. A backup plan. Someone who would always be there, no matter how badly he treated me. I said, "I spent 34 years in that house, Andrew. I raised you there. I sacrificed everything so you could have a life. And the second I said no to you, the second I set a boundary, you threw me out. You told me to leave. So I did." He said, "I didn't mean it. I didn't think you'd actually." I cut him off. I said, "You didn't think. That's the problem. You didn't think about what you were asking me to risk. You didn't think about what I'd already given you. You didn't think about me at all." He started crying again. Harder this time. He said, I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But please, Mom. Please. I need you. I don't know what to do. I don't have anywhere to go." And that's when I felt it. Not pity. Not forgiveness. But something softer. Something sadder. I said, "You have to figure it out, Andrew." Just like I did. He looked at me like I'd slapped him. I said, "I'm not signing anything for you. I'm not letting you move in here. I'm not fixing this for you. You're a grown man, and you made your choices. Now you have to live with them." He said, "So that's it? You're just done with me?" I shook my head. I said, "No. I'm not done with you. But I'm done being your crutch. I'm done letting you take me for granted. If you want a relationship with me, Andrew, it's going to be on different terms. Equal terms. You're going to have to earn it." He didn't say anything. He just stared at the floor. After a long silence, he stood up. He wiped his face. And he said, "Okay. That was all. Just okay." He walked to the door. Paused. And then he turned back and said, "I love you, Mom." I said, "I love you too." And I did. I do. But love isn't enough. Not when it's one-sided. Not when it's conditional. Not when it comes with the expectation that you'll set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. He left. And I let him go. That was 6 months ago. Andrew and I talk now. Not often. Maybe once a week. He's living with a roommate, working extra hours, trying to get his life back on track. He hasn't asked me for money. He hasn't asked me for anything, actually. And that's progress. My breath. As for me, I'm okay. Better than okay, actually. I'm learning to live for myself again. I'm taking a pottery class. I'm volunteering at the library. I'm spending time with my sister and her grandkids. I'm building a life that doesn't revolve around sacrifice. And I'm not angry anymore. I was for a long time. I was furious. Devastated. Heartbroken. But anger is exhausting. And I'm too old to carry it around. What I am is free. Free from the weight of expectations. Free from the fear of disappointing someone who was never going to be satisfied anyway. Free from the belief that my worth is measured by how much I give up. If you're watching this and you've ever felt used, taken for granted, or invisible in your own life, I want you to hear this. You are not selfish for setting boundaries. You are not cruel for protecting yourself. You are not obligated to sacrifice your peace for someone else's comfort. Even if that someone is your own child. I don't regret what I did. Not for a second. I gave Andrew everything I had. And when he told me it wasn't enough, I finally gave myself permission to walk away. And you know what? The world didn't end. He didn't fall apart. He's figuring it out. Just like I did. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever had to make the hardest choice to save yourself, drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from. I'd love to hear your story too. And please, check the description box for more stories like this. Stories about survival, strength, and taking your life back when someone tries to take it from you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And remember, you are worth more than what you can give.